Have you seen our logo refresh? We're working with Practicery, the therapist-led branding and web design studio that helps you build a brand that feels like you and attracts the clients you're meant to serve. Strategy, design, and marketing support you'll actually feel good about.
Visit practicery.com and use the code MODTherapist, all caps, for a special offer. Looking for expert speakers for your next event? Curt and Katie Vernoy, that's me, deliver engaging workshops on clinical, legal, ethical, and business topics. Give your audience practical tools to thrive as modern therapists. Learn more at therapyreimagined.com.
You're listening to the Modern Therapist Survival Guide, where therapists live, breathe, and practice as human beings. To support you as a whole person and a therapist, here are your hosts, Curt and Katie Vernoy.
Welcome back, Modern Therapists. This is the Modern Therapist Survival Guide. I'm Curt with Katie Vernoy, and this is the podcast for therapists about the things that go on in our practices, the things that happen with our clients. And we have done several hundred episodes at this point, and in all of them, we have maybe alluded to the field of somatic therapies, but we haven't really ever dived in and really talked about how somatic work comes up. We post questions in our Facebook group, the Modern Therapist group, from time to time, where people post comments as far as body is really underutilized and understood in the healing process. And Katie and I thought, we had such a wonderful time talking with Linda Tai in one of our previous episodes that we would love for her to come back and to be able to talk about ways to incorporate some more somatic work. And I'm always just so much at peace when I hear Linda talk, even when she's talking about the state of the world and what's going on. But it's so wonderful to be in your presence again. And thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it is such a gift and a pleasure to be back here with you, Curt and Katie, and your community.
We're so excited to have this conversation with you. And like Curt, I just love spending time with you because I feel like you bring something that soothes me and helps me to accept myself in a different way. And so I'm sure we'll end up talking about those things. And I will, as always, be very effusive about your work. But before we get started, I want to let other folks know, who are you and what are you putting out into the world?
I'm a somatic therapist and I'm a trauma therapist and an integrative therapist, so trained in multiple modalities. As a result of having read The Body Keeps the Score, got it on the day that it came out in 2014. And my life has become changed because my somatic architecture has become transformed. We often talk about how you don't see the world as the world is, you see the world as you are. That's what I learnt in my yoga training. And yet the additional layer of that is recognizing that, yes, our bodies keep the score and our bodies tell the stories of our lives. And if we can pause for long enough and be curious and have a space of containment, of clarity, of witnessing, that we're then able to start to pause for long enough to catch up with what happened that shouldn't have happened, with what was given that shouldn't have been given, with what was taken that shouldn't have been taken. And in that way, begin to befriend ourselves from the inside out. And for me, that is the ultimate power of somatic psychotherapies. And my own journey, my own process has led me to recognize that I'm part of a larger body. I'm part of a communal body. I'm part of an ancestral body. I'm part of an ecological body, an ecological system. I'm a part of something so much bigger than myself. And this is what trauma does. It disconnects us from this sense of being a part of a unified field.
Katie and I have embraced a lot of trauma therapies. One of our frequent podcast guests, Jamie Marich, speaks very highly of you as well. She comes on, talks a lot about integrating some of your practices and principles. So Katie and I are very much immersed in not just your teachings, but also some of the very wonderful people who also incorporate bodies and spiritual and cultural practices into things. For the people who haven't been listening to us for the last 8 years, what are they missing out on when it comes to how some of this body work, how some of these cultural practices really end up as part of the healing process?
Okay, I'm just going to throw some words out there and let's see what happens. So, Tema Bryant, I'm paraphrasing Tema Bryant, who is president of the APA, says that traditional psychology says, what's wrong with you? And trauma-informed psychology asks, what happened to you? Culturally informed psychology asks, what happened to your peoples? And liberation psychology asks, and what continues to happen to you and to your peoples? And so when we look at the last 400, 500, 600 years of human history, we actually then need to put front and center the history of colonialism. And what colonialism has done is on purpose disconnected us from our bodies, has disconnected us from the cycles and the rhythms and the seasons of the natural world and of the earth around us through hustle culture, through trauma, mass collective historical traumatization, genocides, wars, displacement, enslavement and abduction, the tearing apart of families. And so when we are disembodied, we are easier to control because we have lost a connection to our own innate wisdom, our own body's wisdom, and the wisdom of the earth that's holding us.
In trying to reconnect to that, I know that there are folks who do a lot of different types of their work, going into nature, trying to regulate their nervous systems. It feels like that's both an actual thing and kind of a phrase that people start saying in TikTok and those types of things, or reconnecting with their cultural heritage or their community. And I think especially now, it can feel absolutely critical to do these things and much more difficult to do them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How are you approaching the healing work of others? It seems like you've been able to really tap yourself in, and I love your newsletter because I get a sense of how you're kind of grappling with it on a week to week, month to month basis. But it's clear that you've been doing this work for a long time. And so for folks who are not as far on their journey, especially during these very tumultuous times, what are you recommending as far as how to make sure that you're getting back connected to what those who want us disembodied don't want us to connect to?
I would start by a gentle rocking of the body, whether it's side to side or back and forth or little hemicircles. Or perhaps for you, it's a down and then an up and then a down. Yeah. And I see here for Katie, your body's natural wisdom just began to take over and you scrunch the shoulders up and then in and then release them down. And then a big deep breath naturally emerged. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we rock from side to side like this, the vestibular system comes online, which is a balance systems. And that means the left and the right side of the brain through the inner ears, left and right, are starting to then communicate to each other through the corpus callosum. And when the vestibular system is online, then the limbic brain, the vehement emotions, the survival brain is offline. And so this right here can be such an incredible resource. And I also noticed that when I invited you to just gently rock your body, that your eye gaze actually naturally oriented to the distance. And I know that we're on computer screens right now, but your eyes just, there was this wisdom in the body that said, oh yeah, and now I'm going to look into the distance. Yeah. And that is also your body's natural wisdom emerging, because perhaps we can offer permission in this moment for our listeners to orient towards the distance. So to the imaginary horizon through your walls or the horizon outside your windows. And notice what subtly emerges for you. It could be a softening or a lengthening. And I see for you, Katie, there was a connection to the backside of your body just for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when we are in go, go, go mode, yeah, we're in the front side of our bodies. Yeah, we're on the edges of our seats. We're prepared to mobilize ourselves for action, as well as preparing to mobilize ourselves perhaps for protection. And when there is the persistent possibility of unsafety and threat, it makes sense that our bodies are always mobilized. And when we're always mobilized, then it doesn't take as much metabolic energy to then go into action. Whereas when we're in the backside of our bodies, it takes a lot more energy to mobilize. Yeah. And that could mean life or death. And so what we're doing here is just offering the nervous system and the body little micro moments to pause into rest, to pause into slowing down. Yeah, as trauma therapists, we often talk about SUDs, subjective units of discomfort. Subjective distress. You can see how much I don't use it. SUDs, subjective units of distress. Yeah, like pre and post an intervention. And what if we could orient towards SUNs, subjective units of nourishment, right? Little micro moments for a sip of nourishment, of pause,
of respite.
And right here, Katie, your body is receiving the support of the desk in front of you. Yeah. So this isn't a collapse, right? This is your body receiving the support of the desk, because if your body was in a collapse, your neck would be shortened and like in the turtleneck. Yeah. And I see how your eyes are softened, how there's actually some color in your cheeks. And I actually notice how your breath has just naturally lengthened in terms of the exhale and the inhale. Just from a little moment where we rocked the body and then your body's wisdom emerged, and I caught it just in that moment and asked us to land into the eye gaze in the distance. And the other thing about the eye gaze in the distance is that can bring us out of the peri-trauma response. When we are in a peri-trauma response, right, we're moving towards the edge of hypervigilance. Yeah. With the peri-trauma response, our peripheral vision narrows in and our field of focus also shortens. And then we don't see, we actually don't see things that are right in front of us. We don't see possibilities or possible routes or other creative, resourceful opportunities, possibilities, avenues. And so orienting towards the distance, that brief moment of the connection to the back body, the limbic brain starts to disengage as we're rocking the body. The vestibular system comes online. Breath naturally emerges. The eyes soften. One, we're more approachable. Two, we have more brain capacity. We have more creative, collaborative potentiality that emerges that can actually then speak more effectively into what is needed from us. And we also have more capacity to know what's ours to do and know what is not ours to do. We have more capacity to notice countertransference. And we often think as therapists that countertransference is what is happening between me and my client. However, it happens at the collective, at the cultural, at the societal levels. And when we are more embodied, we're more able to notice that. And then we can attend to that which is ours. And so in this way, individual healing and collective liberation really does go hand in hand. And we have to be able to move towards discomfort. Because as therapists, we know that, right? That personal healing isn't possible without some discomfort. And collective healing also, collective liberation is also not possible without capacity for discomfort, capacity for embodied, collective, co-creative struggle. And that is discernment. And that takes practice and community and encouragement and support. And the knowing that oopsies and ouchies will happen along the way. You know, as Bayo Kamalafe says, the times are urgent, let us slow down.
If your brand looks fine but doesn't feel like you, and your website isn't bringing in the clients you want, you're not alone. Most therapists weren't taught how to brand or market themselves in a way that's clear, compelling, and authentic. That's where Practicery comes in. Kimberly, a therapist, and Justin, a designer, team up to create bold, feel like you brands and websites that reflect your voice, your values, and your vision. This isn't a side hustle. It's what they do with years of experience working alongside trusted names in the field.
Practicery offers brand strategy, custom design, therapist websites, audits with clear feedback, and even casual co-working pop-in lunches. And just for MTSG listeners, get $25 off your first audit or $100 off branding and website services with the code MODTherapist, all in caps. Ready for a brand that finally feels like you and calls in the clients you're here for? Visit practicery.com. A lot of people with trauma in their backgrounds, somatic work seems to fit very, very wonderfully in. And for a lot of trauma therapists out there, they already understand that. And a lot of times what trauma therapists will run into is clients who that activation in the nervous system can be very triggering and very traumatizing. It can be something that discomfort that you're referring to is something that our clients are not ready for, they're not used to. How do you help clients address that?
Mm-hmm. I find that psychoeducation is ever so helpful. And I often use the metaphor of hashtags. So that sensory memories, somatic memories become hashtagged into a filing cabinet that is outside of our conscious awareness that says the whiff of the sniff of this, I am going to mobilize or I am going to immobilize in service of survival. And we also know with trauma survivors that the whiff of the sniff of discomfort is hashtagged in with the thing before the thing before the thing before the thing before the unsafety, threat, danger. Yeah. And so therefore it makes sense that discomfort equals danger, that it's become hashtagged in so deeply in service of survival so that the thing that happened that shouldn't have happened doesn't happen ever again. And therefore to frame PTSD as a set of future-oriented survival strategies that live in the present moment as a result of something in the past that we may not be aware of, that we may not even have the words for, and yet can we be curious? Yeah, can we be curious and slow things down, unpack things, get to know the various hashtags as they arise in real time so that we can normalize the ways in which your body responds to the whiff of the sniff of discomfort, because there is something so incredibly threatening about it. There is something clearly there is something there because your body is responding in service of survival. And I find psychoeducation is a great way to depathologize what is happening and to help someone to make sense of the ways in which they have so very remarkably sought to make sense of, to cope with a nervous system that they have minimal control over, a nervous system that seems to hijack them, a nervous system that they may have perhaps decided that they need to exert absolute control over at all times, perhaps even by leaving the body and treating the body as an object, right? It's that Janina Fisher saying how trauma survivors don't have memories, we have symptoms. And some of those symptoms many of those symptoms are the management strategies.
When we look at kind of the broader topic that we're talking here to bring some folks in who've not necessarily explored this, what are some of the basics about somatic work that therapists need to know at this point to really be able to sit with us in this conversation?
So the strategies that kept you alive keep you from living, and yet they kept you alive. And in terms of somatic work actually allows us to slow things down for long enough to become aware of those strategies. So we're actually accessing the wisdom of the body from the bottom up. Like as you stay with, we pause in on moments and we pause in and we will ask, what is emerging in this moment in terms of other sensory information that's emerging, memories, images, emotions. And we frame those as body echoes or memory echoes that are hashtagged in with this felt sense of it's life or death or it's urgency or I must avoid. Yeah. And we can normalize all of this within what we know about the symptoms of trauma. And yet what we also need to know is when we slow things down, what can actually emerge is then the body's wisdom emerging to move the trauma out of the body, which is the neurogenic tremoring, which is the vehemence of, I'm doing it now, like the nostrils start to flare and the mouth starts to snarl and the fight response starts to emerge. And my hands are starting to claw and grip, right? Yeah. And this is the body's natural wisdom, of moving through that which has learned to be overridden. And this override response is what we have learned to do in order to survive. And so when we start to tap into the body and the body's wisdom, then stuff will emerge that we actually need to have training around, because otherwise it's like, whoa, what is happening? Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And the client may also feel that way. And they've spent their entire lives overriding, because that has also been part of the management strategy and the survival strategy. And so now the body is starting to release. And it can butt up against, I'm feeling out of control. It can butt up against shame. It can butt up against humiliation, rejection, abandonment. I'm too much. I'm not enough. I'm confused, especially when there's been terror, right? Because trauma is inescapability. Then there is also existential confusion. And the preparation work of the psychoeducation and learning how to take nibbles, right? How to move towards and then away. And the body will naturally do this. It'll say, oh, that was a lot, and then move back. And us as therapists, we can tend to want to push towards catharsis. And yet it's about integration. Yeah. And so this is the window expanding, and now the body's saying, oh, that was a lot, and then is automatically shifting back. And to then allow the nervous system time to land, because now we're actually expanding the nervous system's capacity for rest and for ease. And we often forget this as trauma therapists. We think that it's about moving towards the distress, right? And and expanding that window. And yet it's also about the landing afterwards, where we're actually expanding the capacity for rest and for ease. And in this process, we're actually expanding your window of tolerance, or your window of capacity, as I prefer to call it. And so this here is working at the nervous system level. I personally have experienced so much benefit from Brainspotting and other modalities where we're getting into the traumatic memory. I've experienced a lot of benefit from flash technique and from havening touch, where we're deactivating the autonomic nervous system activation associated with particular memories. And yet at the same time, for me, somatic experiencing and sensorimotor psychotherapy has expanded my window. Yeah, so I have more capacity for productive struggle. I have more capacity for discernment. Because discernment is moving towards discomfort while being tethered. Yeah. And we know that with trauma survivors, that when we get to the edges of the window, that's where our survival strategies then kick into high gear. Right. And when we're talking about distress tolerance, it's actually about being able to stay at the edges of our window without blasting out of the window. Yeah, because for us, the whiff of the sniff of that discomfort means that I am going into my survival strategy or my management strategy.
Need dynamic, knowledgeable speakers for your next event, training, or conference? Curt Widhelm, that's me, and Katie Vernoy, that's her, bring real-world expertise to every presentation, covering topics like supervision, private practice growth, and therapist burnout. Our workshops are interactive, insightful, and packed with actionable strategies to help modern therapists succeed.
Whether you're planning a team training or a large-scale event, Curt and I deliver high-impact learning experiences tailored to your needs. Book us today. Visit therapyreimagined.com to learn more. It's so interesting. When you were talking, I had such a deep reaction to the comment about expanding the capacity for rest. And we talk frequently about being able to manage and weather the top of the window. But I think I am one of those folks who particularly have difficulty weathering the bottom of the window. So I hadn't really thought about it in that way, and it's really interesting because I think it's something that I'm assuming a lot of therapists can miss. How do you address folks who have difficulty with rest?
Within a session, I make a lot of time for the nervous system to land. And so part of the preparation work is knowing that when we come back for the session where we're going to start to play with moving towards the upper edge of the window, that we actually kind of have to get into it. Yeah, so that we have enough time at the end of session for the nervous system to land, or we book a 90-minute session. Yeah, we just do that. Because otherwise it can sound like I'm trying to convince you that rest is necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. When so many of us struggle with it for a whole variety of reasons that are related to survival, related to culture, related to family systems, related to the fact that for some of us, our peoples have never, ever been allowed to rest, ever. Yeah. And so, I mean, there are so many layers of this that are actually worth unpacking and normalizing, including the fact that for many of us, living in go, 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 go mode is also how we have survived, because that experience of powerlessness, helplessness, hopelessness, I don't want to experience ever again. And so rest can be hashtagged in very closely to it's over now. It's about to be over now. And so many of us, we don't have that thing where we have a bedtime routine and we ease towards bed. We just go, 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 and then hit the pillow, pass out.
Yeah.
And that pattern, that rhythm, that cycle repeats itself in our working lives where we go, 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 and then burnout, crash. While simultaneously naming that burnout is also institutional exploitation. It's also a product of institutional exploitation. And yet for some of us, our nervous systems, like when we start to get towards burnout, we then double down and work even harder and then work even harder so that we can work our way through the burnout. And that's where the institutional betrayal and exploitation needs to be named. And yet when we look at rest, I tend to, I love doing work with individuals. And yet from a more expansive conceptualization, beyond naming hustle culture and beyond naming that rest is revolutionary and rebellion within hustle culture, we can also name that in nature doesn't make us earn rest. That rest is a part of the rhythms and cycles of the seasons, of the days, of the animals and plants and everything around us. And we have become disconnected from those cycles of nature.
How do you help clients expand this beyond the therapy sessions? I work with a lot of teens who maybe don't have the permission in their family environments to be able to operate outside of that survival mode. And to be able to incorporate some of these practices is something that can feel very dangerous in a way that is ideally kind of a goal to be able to take it and be able to live in this way more consistently.
Naming that and framing that, I think, is very important. Right. We also need to name the gentrification of calm and the weaponization of calm within families, within school systems, within cultural contexts, where calm then becomes weaponized towards compliance and obedience. Because without recognizing that within the context of that individual's life, calm is not accessible, and calm may make you a sitting duck. And therefore it makes sense that you're always on. That your nervous system has become sensitized to perhaps the cycles of domestic violence. That you started to get to know the sound of the keys as someone's coming home. And that's the thing before the thing, before the thing, before the thing. And therefore it makes sense that when you hear any keys, right, that your body goes into a survival threat. And this is where it's important to, I think Dick Schwartz calls it being a hope merchant. Where we can take in suns where we can, the subjective units of nourishment, where we can create for ourselves pockets of respite as well as pockets of collective care, whether that is baseball or dance or hip hop or beatboxing or a walk in the park. Whether it's being a part of Big Brothers, Big Sisters, being a part of any form of community group, so that someone can experience relative safety and relative connection in ways outside of the family system, so that they can see that, be exposed to that there is a bigger world out there than their family. And we're scaffolding in the social emotional skills, the life skills that will help you to make good decisions for yourself later on. Because how it is now won't be how it'll be forever, even though I know it feels like it. And that's where these self-regulation techniques, the co-regulatory capacity of finding one's people, a place where you can breathe, where you can hope, where you can dream, where you can imagine something different for yourself. And that's also the space that we provide. And over time, that starts to become somaticized, starts to become embodied, it starts to become real, and we all get loved into becoming. We all get witnessed into becoming.
For therapists who want to incorporate bottom-up processing or specifically more somatic or culturally aware practices, where do you recommend they start?
Start with whatever is accessible and available for you that fits into your busy schedules. Start with whatever it is that piques your interest and your curiosity. Find yourself communities, teachers who resonate with you. Because there are a lot of fabulous teachers out there, and it's all about, you know how we all have books? Like, we're therapists, we have so many books. And stacks. And yet, so many of the books are just, so painful to read because the writer doesn't write in a style that comes alive in our bodies. And in our minds. And yet there are other books that we just devour because the manner of teaching really speaks to us. So the communication style speaks to us. It's the same with teachers. And so my invitation and encouragement is to connect to the communities, the teachers, because when you learn how you learn, you can learn how to do anything. When you learn how you learn, you can learn how to do anything. And when you learn what supports you need, what environment you need in order to learn, you can learn anything. And I say that overtly, knowing that therapists, we have our own bucket of stuff. That means that we also have really distinct learning styles that we somehow made it through graduate school. Somehow. And we don't have to do that to ourselves anymore, right? We don't have to do that to ourselves anymore. And so that would be my overall encouragement. And if you find yourself in a 3-year program and the style of teacher the trainer does not work for you, find another trainer. You don't have to endure that trainer because that's what is you don't have to do that. Yeah. And before you commit to a 3-year training course, I would highly encourage folks to come over to the Somatic certificate that I offer on my website, linda-ty.com. It's a 12-week course that gives you a primer in terms of the very big, very, very, very big field of somatic psychotherapy. And then based on that, you'll be able to then have an idea of where you would like to go that matches what it is you're currently offering right now. Right. So there are therapists who just love worksheets. And so there are areas we can go around mapping the nervous system and befriending the nervous system in that way. And then there are therapists who are like, no, trauma. Right. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, there's a direction you can head in there. And for others, it's like, no, it's more sort of developmental wounding rather than trauma, in which case there's a different direction. Yeah. And in that 12-week course, you'll be exposed to all 3 of those, plus some more. And that will then allow you to make a better decision for yourself based on your own needs, your own preferences, how you prefer to operate as a therapist, as well as the client base, who is your preferred client base.
That 12-week course is so rich and has so many extra pieces to it. I'm still working my way through it. And it's just a joy to learn from you. It matches for me. And so I really have appreciated that course. There was another, somatic, like a toolbox with different somatic exercises to do that was also very approachable and provided me with some more tools for my little tool belt when I needed to get myself a little bit more regulated, especially now. So there's so many good things that you have that was why I specifically wanted to reach out to you for this. But it's something where learning this stuff pulls together a lot of things I've heard before, but I think in the way that the big, broad way that you talk about it, and also kind of narrowing down and just, I'm so struck with how you integrate the information that you know into something that makes a lot of sense. I always get very overwhelmed going to all those books and sources, and you've made it very, very consumable, bite-sized.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, thank you. There's speaking to the cultural piece, there's another course I've got out there at the moment called The Missing Pieces of Attachment Theory, a Decolonized Approach. And within that, I also take a somatic approach to resourcing our bodies so that we can remember, a more expansive conceptualization of what it holistically means to be human. And so that would also be a resource for folks to consider as well.
Where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
You can head over to linda-ty.com, LANDA-THAI.com. It's a website with lots of resources in there. I've got lots of stuff out there on YouTube as well as courses that I hope are reasonably accessibly priced with plenty of scholarships available.
And we will include links to those in our show notes over at mtsgpodcast.com. Follow us on our social media. Join our Facebook group, the Modern Therapist Group, to continue on with this conversation. And until next time, I'm Curt Widhelm with Katie Vernoy and Linda Ty.
Your brand and website should feel like you and speak to the clients you're here for. Practicery is here to help and hype you up. Visit practicery.com and use the code MODTherapist, all caps, for a special offer.
Want expert training for your team or event? Katie and I offer engaging workshops with real-world strategies for modern therapists. Visit therapyreimagined.com to learn more and book today.
Thank you for listening to the Modern Therapist Survival Guide. Learn more about who we are and what we do at mtsgpodcast.com. You can also join us on Facebook and Twitter. And please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes.